Here's something I didn't realise was here. This is Villio Cemetery on the St John's Main Road. And there's this little memorial here, gravestone, to Francois Villio, Frank, who died just after the war. Now he was, it says, a survivor of the Nazi prisoner of war camps. Well, of course, he didn't really survive. When he was released from Belsen, or whatever camp he was last in, him and Harold Le Drillneck were supposedly the only two people to come out alive of Belsen. Harold Le Drillneck went on to be a teacher. This poor chap, Francois Villio, he went for a joyride on a motorcycle during the occupation. The Germans weren't too pleased, so they sent him to prison, which meant then he finished up in a concentration camp or two. And he was very sickly when the liberation of the camps. He went to England to join his father, I think in Nottingham. But he was obviously very sickly. I think he had TB. There was no effective treatment, and he died. So he hardly survived. To say he survived is not really correct. He lived a very brief, tragic life. So eventually the family was, I don't know what was the family, but somebody asked a few years ago, well, what happened to him then? What happened? And they tracked him down. He'd been buried in an unmarked grave in England, Nottingham or somewhere. So they've retrieved his remains so he could come back to Jersey. And this is where he lies. It's personally a little bit gratifying because he's alongside the sculpture in this cemetery, which was created by my brother. So there's a slight association. But for Frank, of course, he could still be alive. He could be telling his stories of the occupation and what happened to him during the occupation. But he died. Now, it's a tragic story, and Holocaust Memorial Day won't be remembered in full style this year because of the COVID, because Jersey's got the problems of COVID-19. There will be a very simple ceremony. Frank, like lots of others, won't be there, of course, and I hope he'll be remembered. I expect they'll lay a wreath to him there. But he suffered like millions and millions of civilians. It's not just the guys in uniform who suffered. And that's why Holocaust Memorial Day is so important, because it's about all sorts of people, all sorts of nationalities who can get caught up in this sort of activity and suffer, be tortured, be murdered. For what? So it still goes on today. All over the world there are people still fighting for justice and all the other inhumanities which are imposed upon them by us, fellow human beings. So there we are, an ordinary little guy who died, one of millions. We need to remember them.